Episode 5. So today I gotta walk extra slow. It's very slippery. So, I am a king. Watch the bow. And love. Love being most important. Always important. When you say the word hate, it's like throwing daggers at a person. But when you say the word love, it's like cushioning a person. And so these words, and they say what's in the word, is like, well, what's in the name? Very important. What's in the date that a person's born? Even more important. It's a matter of understanding your self-worth and thinking like, yes, I'm here at the moment in this game called life, right? I still have a breath. So you're here, so you're important. So just realize that as a leader, you are important. In the communities, they say it's like, oh, you gotta watch out ego, and pride, vanity, and all those words. And they're so similar that you could get caught in this web of deceit in the political world. But in that web, there's one way that you could ensure that you are not enticed, to ensure that you do not become a bad person to your own community, the one you set out to serve. And that one thing was the removal of money. Period. I'll say that one more time. The removal of money from that leader is the only way you will have a leader who will stay true and loyal from the beginning all the way to the end. And to have that leader lead through rewards. So people will say, I have to work for free. If you have to say it that way, then sure. Another person would be like, sweet. So if I work really hard, I'm going to make a lot of money. It's like, fuck yeah. Now that's the person I want to work with. So the society that we want to build for the First Nations people to ensure that it's all based on rewards is to remove that money. And from yourself as well too. Most likely you're broke. That's the perfect place to start. Because you have nothing holding you back. People with money, it's like they're held back. You have to worry about interest rates, right? You got to worry about theft, because that's something else, right? People want it. So there's a worry when you have that as your source of leadership. But you, that leader that I'm talking to, you do not have that holding you back. That's good. However, there'll be some listening who will just be like, ugh. Because of money. That's not a bad thing. At all. Because within this mix of taking away of money, that mentality, that bondage, right? You, this 8th generation, the ones who just lived on welfare and kind of just were all wishy-washy, and people just says, this First Nation person can't learn. And I say, good. Because he cannot learn your standards, your way of thinking, your ideology. These youth are programmed a different way. And the way that we're going to work is within the way that their brain is already programmed. So it's like we're going within that frequency wave forward. We're not trying to insert these different types of waves into a brain because it doesn't belong there. You're going to have like a DJ who's mixing a song. It's like he threw some shoes into the dryer. Then you have these people who just don't fit in. And that's us trying to pretend to be Munyao. We're not. We need to accept that we are not the same. Because we are not the same. People on the res are not the same as people who live in the city. They're two different people. And unfortunately, we're trained to take our youth up to grade 12 and then send them to a city and to send them away. Did they come back? No. Why not? Because they change. Got money. So these leaders, you, will learn to not rely on that, but to have rewards. All of your expenses would be paid, of course, right? And the person, the leader that has the most toys, has the most to show, they'll be like, wow, you guys really love your leader. It's like, heck yeah, he's good to us. So when you're good to your grandmothers, you're good to your neighbors, they reward you for it. And they don't see it as you getting more, but you deserved it. It's a reward that you're given. And so when they look at your toys, they look after your toys as well too. Because I gave them to you. It's your reward as a leader. So there's money that you're not attached to. You're ahead of everybody. Because some will just not be able to get rid of it, especially if they have it. Which is unfortunate. But there will be some who will just be like, I'll give it away, I'll donate it. Depending on them though. It's not nothing else. It's just them on their journey and their pain. So if you have a person who's had a lot of pain and a person who has a lot of money, there's still some heart in there. And that person probably like what did I call them? Philanthropist? Piss load of money? Suck to have all that money and not be able to use it while you're out and about. But this money. Funny part is for 3.5 years, I was led to create a plan. It's okay. Here's a good example. It's just really funny. Okay, so story time. I'm on the reserve doing my field work. That's what I called it eventually because it was good. Hey, let's go over there. Just I was homeless for 3 years. It's good. I was called a lot of names. It was just like, oh, what a waste. It was like, oh, that's horrible. Until you came from your own dad, you're just like, oh. You're just like, okay, keep going. Didn't hear that. But on this journey, they would have scenarios, like when you listen, right? Because people will put scenarios in their mind. Imagine this, you're walking and all of a sudden you're a scenario and you're painting a scenario that gets you angry and angry and angry, and all of a sudden you get over there and it's like the story that you painted in your head that got you angry. And that's the same thought, same flow. And to allow you to make the right decision. And so these paths that I walked into, and that's what you'll go into as well too. But a person has to let go. They have to let go of their past, their bonds. So there's reset that I had mentioned prior. And you'll notice that I tend to talk backwards. So I'll get used to it. I write backwards too, but it's different. That's even code too. But whatever. C'est la vie. These leaders, you who work on rewards, we want to create that same system for the community. To build a community based on rewards. Here's a good example. You see someone there and he has a house, he has a vehicle, and he has a really cool, let's say, bike, right? And you know that person hasn't bought any of that. It's like, sweet, you're not. So that house, we'll say, is worth $20,000. And that vehicle is worth, say, $10,000. And that motorbike, we'll say, was worth $5,000. Then you add those up and you're like, okay, sweet. You know how many hours this guy has worked. Because for every hour that a person works, you say, well, we're going to pay him a certain amount of dollars. And so you being that leader, I have a number in mind. I've been thinking about this plan that I've written and been thinking about for 3.5 years, and it's drove me just fucking mad. You have no idea. To be shown a path, to be shown an idea, and to look at your co-workers that are in the communities. And so as I was walking around being introduced to my future co-workers, and I was so disappointed because I was just like, wow, we're fucked. Because I would go out and I would try to encourage, right? I wrote this business plan. And so there's actually only one young man in my journey who I knew who got it. And I told him the story, and he's like, actually just wanted to actually sit there and listen. So I just like, okay, fine. Because everybody's always busy. And that was another problem. Everyone was always busy. And you're just like, wow. And so I was pretty much kind of just shown all the ways that we're set up to fail in the community. But the main problem was the mindset that we must be governed by a white face. Not just my community, but all communities. It's like they need that white face because they've been governed over and over and over that white face is their authority. Not realizing that they are the authority in their own community. You, that leader, the ones that are going to come together. So during this walk, I was able to see how we as a community, almost overnight, even one season, could grow our own food and take back our humanity, our stomach, our minds, our children, and raise them properly. And I want to tell stories of how these people who wandered they'd say, right? But you know better. They were led by nature. And how these people were listening. And nature showed them how to live. Say, okay, look at the animals. It's like, you're no better than that animal, is how they would teach them in the beginning. So if you look at these little puppies, for example, right? And so it's just like, act like that little puppy. So if you really watched them, you're just kind of like, interesting. So if you look at the animals and how they drink water, so the way they drink water is that principle of 369. So if you look at how they drink, is they have their two hooves, and you have your two hands, and you go down and you drink. Then you go up in 1, 2, and 3. The interesting part and the great part of that, when I talked about that cause and effect, is that going up in 3 is they would look up and they would be looking at the sun. Every day they would time it that the sun would be exactly forward, so that way they could look up at it. And they would use that also as a safety. Because when you look up, you got to look up if there's any crocodiles, right? Alligators, something there that wants to hurt you. So that looking up, there is duality again. For protection from the physical, but also from the spiritual. Not realizing it, but in this time, now you realize it. Now you could go and use that same principle to protect yourself from the spirit world, to be able to use that 369 that Tesla left for humanity. He says, if you understood the power of 369, you would understand the universe. Because when you initiate that 369 as a human, and you drink that water and you treat that water with proper care and proper respect, you understand the universe because it tells you itself. You go for a walk and all of a sudden you hear a story, but you do not hear a voice. It's your intuition, like a mother just knows her child is hurting, knows that her baby is screaming inside. I gotta go. My baby's screaming. How do you know? She doesn't have to tell you. Same thing. And that's why grandmothers are important in this, because of that faith that they use with that scream, that bond that they have with those children, right? Once you felt that pain, it belongs to you. It doesn't belong to anyone else, because you say, I did it myself. That pain belongs to me. And that's what those grandmothers are, pain. You know why? I'll tell you why the most, since my journey in listening to these grandmothers, was to watch their grandchildren not succeed and to die before they did. That was their worst. That thought destroyed many women because they would see it all the time, every day. And the only way to ease that suffering was to die, unfortunately. And that was their ease. But if you're able to bring those two worlds together, that 8th generation and that grandmother, those gifts will be able to work with that love. Because that love from that grandmother is going to save you as well. In my journey, when I talked about hell. There was 2 people I didn't see there in hell, these leaders. One, a grandmother. And I says, the grandmother's a leader, right? He's like, yes. It's like, where is she? You think they'd be here because we're bad? It's like, no. She's gone through it, so why would you make that person suffer? They gone through everything only to see their grandchildren suffer. I didn't bring them here, so no. We will not. I said, what about kings? Look into your list here, and there's no kings. And it's like, well, they're exempt as well too, because the people put them there. They're absolved of everything they get because the people put them there. They were given permission in the way it works. But you have these chiefs who think they have permission to go and hurt their people, but they don't. So they're absolved of nothing. That's why you see them right there screaming. And so that's why I bring you this message. And I say, if we can go through the old ways again that I've heard, and if you're willing to listen, is that I will continue to speak, and I will have continued criticism from you. But it don't bother me. It gives me strength. Because I know when there's a lot of truth being heard, there's going to be the opposite being pushed back. That's just the way it goes. For the ones who are still listening, cause and effect. But I'm going to take a break. My mouth is getting dry. Thank you.